Hi, I'm Dr. Felice Gersh, your integrative OBGYN physician, and we're going to talk about a problem I see every day in my practice. So many patients are suffering from menopause-related fatigue. So you may ask, and I should throw in, I said menopause, it includes perimenopause. So what is fatigue anyway? Is it different from sleepiness? Well, it can be because you can be very fatigued even if you get a good night's sleep, which is not restorative, but it often does go together, especially in perimenopause and menopausal women. It's usually not one factor that's involved in anything. It's usually multifactorial. But of course, at the bottom or top, depending on how you like to look at things, is the hormonal changing that's occurring. The shifts in how the ovaries are producing estradiol and progesterone and all the sequela that leads to the state of chronic fatigue. So fatigue is where a person has severe exhaustion. They have low energy. They're really tired and they may also be sleepy, but if they sleep, it often doesn't fix the problem. So sometimes we refer to it as wired and tired. It's not that they want to just go to sleep, it's that they really have low energy. Now, don't get me wrong, because sleep is a huge problem. And if you have chronic sleep deprivation or deficiency, you will have fatigue as well. So it's complex, as I said. So let's just touch on sleep. Women in perimenopause and menopause have huge rates of sleep problems. In fact, in perimenopause, close to half, there's a range, of course, it's all individual, but close to half of all women will have sleeping problems. They are tired, they don't fall asleep easily, they often have awakenings. And in menopause, it's even worse. It's close to 60% of women, and in my practice, it seems well over 60%, but that's what the data says, have sleep problems. One of the most common is awakening at night. If you wake up at 2, 3 o'clock most every night, that could be in the normal range if you fall right back to sleep. No one sleeps straight through. You may not remember waking up, but there are sleep phases, and there are always times where people will have a lighter state and they may wake up, but they fall right back to sleep. So it's okay if you wake up. It's not okay if then you lie in bed and you do not fall back to sleep for a long time, like at least 20, 30, an hour. I have patients, they say they can't fall asleep for 2 hours. And then if they do fall asleep, they have to get up soon, or it's a very tumultuous kind of sleep. It's not really a good sleep. So what's going on in the sleep department? In menopausal women, there are, of course, the obvious things that happen in a very high percentage, not all, but like 80%, and that's night sweats and hot flashes. So what we call vasomotor symptoms. Well, nothing is worse for sleep than waking up on and off all night long, either shivering or covered in sweat and feeling really hot and then feeling really cold, changing your sheets, changing your pajamas. It's terrible, right? So, of course, that's very disruptive to sleep. But even in cases where there isn't a presence of vasomotor symptoms, night sweats, hot flashes, there's still often disruptive sleep. So, what would that be due to? Well, estradiol is very critical for the production of the neurotransmitter called serotonin. You probably heard of it because there are a whole line of drugs for anxiety and depression and other reasons that people take them that are actually serotonin reuptake inhibitors to try to create more serotonin in the synapse, the space between neurons. Because when you have enough serotonin, you feel happier and calmer. Well, estradiol is critical for the production and function of the receptors of serotonin. And from serotonin comes melatonin. You've all heard of melatonin. Well, melatonin is critically important for many functions in the body, but melatonin is critical for sleep. And you're supposed to, when you go to bed at a reasonable hour, around 2 a.m. in the middle of the night, you should have a big spike of melatonin production. This really big spike. Now, what does that spike do? It helps put you back to sleep. It's a big walloping dose of melatonin to put you back under if you're having that middle of the night, 2 a.m. awakening. Not enough estradiol coming from your ovaries, then you won't make that big spike of melatonin to keep you asleep. Okay? So that's one thing that people don't even think about, that inadequate estradiol will be big part of the problem. And what about progesterone? Progesterone has a metabolite called allopregnanolone. Now, allopregnanolone is wonderful in the right amount. It activates the GABA A receptor. GABA is a neurotransmitter that's called inhibitory. It like puts your brain down. So it's going to inhibit activation and memory and focus, which wouldn't be too good, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. But when you're trying to sleep and stay asleep, you definitely want to activate your GABA A receptor. And so you want to have that happen. If you don't have enough progesterone, you're not going to make the metabolite allopregnanolone. But we don't want too much. That's why I talked about that. Too much of a good thing is a bad thing. Too much allopregnanolone is like taking too much of a benzodiazepam, like too much Valium or Xanax or sleeping pills. It will put you down too deeply, and that is not good because then you don't get restorative sleep. You mess with the sleep phases, and over time, that can even increase the long-term risk of things like dementia. But the right amount is very restorative to the brain. That's where the dose matters. But in order to make enough allopregnanolone to have good sleep, you need to have progesterone. Now, we don't make progesterone all month long in our cycles from our ovaries, but we can make progesterone in the brain. It's not enough for all people all the time, but progesterone is a neurosteroid. It's actually made in the brain. But if you have too much inflammation, you won't make enough progesterone, and then you won't have its metabolite allopregnanolone. So I mentioned now inflammation. Inflammation will impair sleep. When a woman is going into perimenopause and menopause, she becomes more inflamed, has an increase in systemic inflammation for a number of reasons. One of the big reasons is altered gut microbiome. The microbiome, the collective of all the microbial life forms, trillions of life forms, mostly bacteria, but other things as well, in the gut. That's the biggest microbiome of the body. It's a very complex ecosystem. And it requires, to be optimal, it requires enough estradiol. Well, there it goes. When every woman is entering into perimenopause, she's going to have an altered gut microbiome. It becomes what we call dysbiotic. It has the wrong microbial population. And when you don't have the right gut microbiome, then you do not make the right fermentation products, the short-chain fatty acids like butyrate, which help to keep the mucosa, the mucus lining that forms, that protects the endothelial lining, and the whole gut lining becomes inflamed. Now, when they become inflamed, then you lose your protective mucus coating. Then what happens when you get loss of that mucus binding protector lining? Then you have the toxins get right up to the lining cells, and they start damaging and breaking down the little fibers that hold the lining cells together, which then drift apart. And these endotoxins, which includes pieces of partially digested food and bacteria and viruses and fungi, they get passed between the lining cells into the body proper, activating the immune cells that lie in the gut-associated lymphoid tissue, where 70% of the immune system resides around the gut, and activates the immune system because the immune system sees all these toxic and abnormal things that should not be in the body coming into the body, and they react by producing They're pro-inflammatory particles called cytokines. These cytokines can get into the bloodstream and they travel around to every organ system, including in the brain, where you then have neuroinflammation. Now, the neuroinflammation in the brain will impair the production of the proper neurotransmitters that we were just talking about, and will also activate and cause the embedded immune cells of the brain, called the microglia, to become more activated as well. It will also damage the blood-brain barrier, allowing other toxins that are circulating in the blood to get directly into the brain. The barrier protecting the brain is now broken down, like leaky brain. Okay, that will upset the whole balance of everything going on in the brain, which will, of course, upset the emotions, the cognition, and sleep. And you're not going to produce progesterone properly in an inflamed environment in the brain. You won't make enough allopregnanolone. So we do not want this to happen. So we have to do everything to maintain a healthy gut microbiome. Okay, that is so, so critical. Now, what about mitochondria? Oh, it's such an important topic. Mitochondria are the little structures, the organelles that are present in our cells that create energy. Well, obviously, fatigue is about low energy. So we're learning more and more about the role that hormones, estradiol predominantly, also progesterone, play in maintaining the proper production of energy for every function in the body. How about muscles? Well, a lot of women, when they have menopausal fatigue, not only do they feel fatigue in their brains, they feel it in their muscles. They don't have the same exercise endurance, the same stamina, the same strength. Now, women do tend to lose muscle. It's called sarcopenia. But even before that, they lose energy in their muscles due to changes in mitochondrial function. This is not a good thing. So you're going to not only have fatigue in your brain, and like you have mood disorders and sleep problems, you also have just lower, literally, energy in your muscles. So that is really a part of the peri and menopause related fatigue. Is like, I'm just not, my performance is really hampered. And that can be very related to changes in mitochondrial function, because without adequate hormones from the ovaries, you will not have adequate mitochondrial function. So what else is going on? Well, mood. I mentioned mood. So if you're feeling sad or depressed, that also depletes you of energy. It's like bi-directional. And when women transition into menopause, they double instantly their risk of having significant clinical mood disorders like depression and anxiety with a previous history of any mood disorder. Their risk of developing mood disorder as they go through perimenopause quadruples. And women who are depressed are chronically tired, and then they don't have quality sleep. We know that this is a very strong relationship, and it's bidirectional, like a bad spiral going down. So that is such a really critical, important thing. Now, there's some other things that are sort of secondary. When women go into perimenopause, usually their partners are similar in age. Well, it turns out that sometimes people sleep in the same bed and their partner keeps them awake, like they're snoring, they're making noises, or they're getting up all night to go to the bathroom. So sometimes, I hate to say it, but the best thing for the quality of your life and to help you with your sleep and your restorative energy is what I have named, but others as well, called a sleep divorce, so that you have a great relationship during the day. Get your partner to get the proper health care needed so that he or she can actually have good health. But in the interim, please separate during the night so that you can each get the best sleep that is possible. Also, as much as you can, try to keep pets from waking you up during the night. I know people have elderly pets, they love to sleep with them, but if you have a pet that is really keeping you up at night, on top of everything else, maybe you can find a way to get a little kennel or help your pet to learn how to sleep on this floor next to you or some such thing, because it's really, really hard when all these other things are happening and there are either animals or other humans that are interrupting your sleep on and off all night long. Now, I mentioned leaky gut and all the problems that can create for inflammation. But what about nutrition? Well, if you don't have the right nutrients because your digestion is not good, when you have the gut dysbiosis, you have the abnormal function and also motility of the gut, you don't have proper digestion is what I'm getting at. So then you don't have proper digestion and absorption of nutrients. I can assure you that you will not have optimal energy if you don't have the proper array of vitamins. If you don't have enough vitamins that are so critical for energy, like riboflavin B2, or for mood, like vitamin B6, B12 is so critical for making neurotransmitters and other proteins and enzymes, cell structures. All these things require amino acids. You need to have the proper fatty acids like omega-3, omega-6s. Well, what happens if you don't digest properly? You're going to have deficiencies of vital vitamins and minerals. What about magnesium, involved in over 700 reactions in the body, critical for proper sleep, energy, mood, and other minerals as well. But if you don't have the right digestive tract, you're not going to have the right nutrients to create energy and maintain cellular function. And as well, you may have not only dysregulation of appetite, but alteration of appetite. And you may start craving sweets and processed carbs. So it's not just what gets digested, it's what you consume. So if you're consuming all the wrong foods, obviously you're not going to get all the right variety and array of nutrients, and also critical phytonutrients that come from plants. A lot of people just want to eat processed carbs and animal protein. You're not going to get the polyphenols you need and the wide array of other vitamins and minerals. What about thyroid? Well, it turns out that estradiol is critical for the production and function of thyroid hormone. Well, as you're losing your estradiol, there's estrogen receptors on the thyroid gland. Then you will not make thyroid hormone as optimally. And thyroid receptors don't work as well if you don't have estradiol present. So even if you are having adequate amounts of production of thyroid hormone, you may not have proper function of the receptors, which is tantamount to having a hypothyroid situation. And most people know if you have low thyroid, you're going to have fatigue and low energy. And that is a very big deal. Okay, so we need to have so many things to have proper energy, the right food, the right energy producers, mitochondria. We have to have good brain function. We can't have a chronically inflamed body, brain, or any other part of us. We need the right gut microbiome. We need those vital hormones. So what are we going to do? We can't prevent going into menopause. We can look at all the things that we can do to help us to have more energy. Exercise actually increases the health and function of our muscles. So even though you're tired and you may have lower stamina, you want to get on a good exercise program, some weight training and aerobic. Just taking a brisk walk is really beneficial. Also is very good for mood. Get sunlight. Sunlight increases serotonin production. And then from serotonin, I told you, comes melatonin. That's why if you spend a day out in the sun, having fun, you sleep really well that night. You sleep like a baby at night, okay? A good, happy baby, okay? So the bottom line is sunlight is great, exercise is great. Did you know that muscle can actually make estrogen? With exercise, not enough for your whole body, but it helps muscle. So muscle will be healthier if you exercise it. So that's another important thing. You have to work on sleep. No, I can't tell you how important it is to try to go to bed at the right time, to have the right environment in your bedroom. I always wear a sleep mask. I have a fan that I have blowing on me most nights. I love it. It feels like ocean breezes. And I love that little worry sound. It's very light. And you want to make sure anyone who's in bed with you isn't disturbing you all night, or do something about it, okay, including animals. You want to make sure the room is cool as well. Get rid of all the little electrical devices near you. Do not check your cell phone in the middle of the night. Make it so that you have to get out of bed to get it, and try not to do that. Don't drink a whole lot of fluid for 2 hours before you go to bed so you don't have to get up. And I didn't mention this, but I'm going to mention it now. If you're perimenopause or menopausal, you're at risk of having sleep disordered breathing or sleep apnea. Obstructive sleep apnea or other forms of sleep disordered breathing are really, really increased. So if there's any question, you wake up during the night and so on, almost every woman would benefit from a home sleep study. It's just a little device that gets put on your finger. It's covered by insurances, and it can tell you, I know Oura rings are great, but this is the gold standard, okay? To get a home sleep study to see. It's amazing what they have now with these sensors that you can tell just on the finger what's going on. So get a home sleep study. If you're having disturbed sleep, it's a great idea, and then it's treatable. There's some things that you can do to help fall back to sleep if you wake up in the middle of the night. And one of the things is that you start with the letter A, okay? And then you think of, say, any food that starts with A, like apple, and then you think B, banana, and C, cantaloupe, and D, donut, whatever. And then if you can't think of something, like you get to H, you can't think of anything, it's okay. Just say something else, like helicopter. I know you're not going to eat a helicopter. It doesn't matter. Most people will actually fall asleep by the letter L, okay? And this has actually been studied. This actually helps. Doing what I just told you with your eyes closed actually puts your brain into a state that is right, the type of brain function right before you fall asleep. So it's amazing how that can work. If you actually get through the alphabet, which I never do, then you just start over with the alphabet again. And instead of saying, say, foods, you say names or places or objects. It doesn't matter. And then you start working your way. Usually you never get through the whole alphabet. It's very unusual. So don't forget that little trick. You can also do your breath work, and that is also very helpful. And don't forget that you can use some little herbals that help you to fall asleep, like ashwagandha, L-theanine, passion flower, lemon balm. You can put lavender oil directly onto the bottoms of your feet and rub it in. It will absorb slowly through the night and help you stay asleep. And of course, I want you to eat the right foods, lots of wonderful plants, lots of vegetables, and take some adequate supplements to get the vitamins and minerals that we all need, extra omega-3. Don't forget all of those things. And what about hormones? Of course, you already know I'm a very strong advocate for starting hormones in the perimenopause years, and to use it in a way that mimics the hormones of a healthy woman in her peak health years, like in her 20s. So fatigue is a real thing. Menopause fatigue is a quality of life buster. It's real. It's harmful. It's first understanding it. Next is solving it. And yes, we can.